In a previous video, we talked about how books were bound to the buyer's taste, having come from the printer just in paper wraps, and then you had your book bound how you want it. And this was common practice in the centuries past. And someone asked to see examples before bindings were put on. Well, we're going to use this as an example here. It's not actually true to form. This has the appearance of being unbound galleys, but it's not. This is actually a disbound book. You can see the remnants of the stitching and a little bit of the gray paper wrap that was originally on here. And I know it was in gray paper wrap when issued because I've handled a few copies still in their paper wraps. But this is essentially what it would look like with all the signatures just lined up. And this is how it would come off the printing press. And you would take that to a binder. If the paper wrap was intact, it would look similar to this. This is still in a paper wrap. You can see a paper title label here on the spine. And this one is really fallen apart, but this was never put in a binding. Here's a duplicate copy of the exact same book having been put in a binding contemporaneous to this paper wrap book. And so you'll notice it's slightly smaller. The binder shears trimmed down the margins before a binding went on this. Here's a more intact example of an original paper wrap on this antiquarian book. This spine was eroded away completely, so I had a binder respine this with paper that closely matches the original. I mentioned before that sometimes instead of paper wraps it would be plain cardstock, and this is an example of that. This came off the printer in just plain boards. And so this is very uninteresting, but never was taken to a binder to be put into leather or vellum or something of that nature. Given the year 1692, probably leather, possibly vellum. Occasionally, it would get a little bit fancier, and you'd get a board with paste papers on it. And these are quite pretty. This is how it would have been purchased, and you would have had actually these removed, generally speaking, and put a leather or cloth binding on them in the 19th century. This one, unfortunately, the spines were completely gone on these, and I had paper spines put on by my binder as well. So in centuries past, you might have bought a book like this, or like this, or like this, or like this, and had it bound into something like this, or perhaps this.